Hello there and welcome to Brian Lomax Movie Talk. I'm going to review Alien Covenant, but I kind of want to go a little bit more in depth with it. I want to go into the themes and the way in which the film kind of portrays them. I've heard some reviews about this film already. It was early reviews before I'd even seen it that kind of said that it was a bit too basic, that it didn't kind of have a lot of the depth that Prometheus had, things that you could read into it. And I gotta say, I completely disagree with that. I think this film is a much better film than Prometheus, a film that I actually do like quite a lot, but it does have its problems. For me, this one, Alien Covenant, it sits within the top 3 Alien films, and it may be, in my mind, as good as Ridley Scott's first Alien film. I think it's going to require a few more viewings before I can say that for definite. But yeah, I loved this film. I thought it was great, and I think there's a lot of meat on its bones to chew on. So let's get into it. First of all, the name of the ship, Covenant. You know, when I hear the word covenant, I think biblical. I think of the covenant made between man and God, in which after the flood, God made a promise to mankind that he would never destroy them in the same way again. He would never send the rains down and a flood to wipe them out. So it's very interesting, I think, that David finds the homeworld, so it seems, of the engineers from Prometheus. And how does he kill them? Well, he rains down that biological weapon on them. He essentially wipes them out with a flood, but a different kind of flood. So yeah, it's almost like the creation is now killing the creator with his own means of annihilation. You know, it's if you want to read that biblical sense into it, which I think we're meant to, given the fact that the film is called Alien Covenant. There's a lot in here as well about the relationship between man and God, and that's never more evident than with David and Walter. So we have this new character in the film, Walter, who's another android, a lot like David, only he's got a different set of programming, so he doesn't have the level of free will that David has. And there's a very good conversation between the two partway through the film in which they talk about this. And they talk about the ways in which David is able to love as a result of that free will that he's been granted. But as a result, he's also able to go his own way, which he does. He rejects God, essentially, his God. He rejects his creators, he rejects humanity and decides to go his own way and become a creator himself. You know, he sees himself as God. He puts himself in that position. If you want to look at it as a biblical reading, that's what mankind does in the Bible. You know, he's given this free will, and as a result, he turns from God and he goes his own way. He puts himself at the center. And we've got, like I say, Walter, who isn't able to do that. He's programmed, but as a result, he's very dutiful, you know. So he on the surface, loves humanity. He puts himself in harm's way several times. He loses a hand as a result of that, which, like I say, on the surface can appear as love. But when it's pre-programming, when he's not really got any choice in the matter because he's duty bound to help human beings, to protect them and not hurt them, then it's not real love at all. It's just, programming. He's a computer. So that's really what the film is looking at. It's kind of an analogy for the way in which mankind has been granted freedom from God, but because of that, he also therefore is able to make the decision to abandon God, to turn on him. Now, I think that is the main thread of the film, the main emphasis of it, I would say. But there's a lot of other things in there that prop it up. A lot of things that talk about faith and about mankind's search for the Creator, for the answers. We kick off the film with the scene between David and Weyland. Guy Pearce returns for the role of Weyland. And obviously this is set before Prometheus, when David was first created. And Weyland talks to David about the search for that meaning, the ultimate question. Why are we here? Who created us? And I think that question sticks with David. It burrows under his skin to the point where he comes to the conclusion that creation really is the key. That the thing that has created is then abandoned, is then obsolete, and the created being then is the thing that must become the next step of, I guess, the evolutionary process, if you want to call it that. So there's other things in the film as well, like with the captain of the ship. Although he doesn't start out being the captain, he becomes the captain by virtue of the fact that the captain ends up dying in an accident. And he struggles with his crew, or more to the point, the feelings he has of judgment from his crew. He's a man of faith. It never explicitly says what that faith is, but he's a believer in God. And the film uses that to look at the way people of faith in a modern world, a scientific world, may feel marginalised and may feel that they're looked upon as though they are either religious fanatics or people who can't quite be trusted in some way because of their faith. And I think the film does a very good job of taking that character and sticking him in with the rest of this crew and using him to look at the role that faith plays in society. There's a moment when one of the other main characters, the wife of the actual captain who died, she tells him that, you know, like in this situation where everything's kicking off, where aliens are here, people are dying left, right and centre, she tells him, we need your faith. We need it right now. You know, we don't have it, we don't share that faith, but we need it. And I think that speaks volumes about a society without faith has no hope. You know, I think that's what faith gives, and that's what this film kind of tells us. It shows us that actually without faith we have no hope. Like I said, I think this is a fantastic film. I think it deals with its themes in a very good way, a much clearer way, I feel, than Prometheus did. I think there were a lot of times during Prometheus I felt like they were trying to go for something, but they maybe didn't quite understand what it was they were trying to say, and sometimes that message got a bit lost, got a bit confused. Whereas here, you know, you got a writer on board like John Logan, writer of Gladiator. He's a very good writer. He knows how to get things across, I think, and he does a fantastic job here. He's not the sole writer on this, but I definitely feel his touch on the script, and I'm glad they've got him on board. Visually, you know, it's Ridley Scott. You're not going to get a Ridley Scott film that doesn't look good, but this does look stunning. You know, anyone who loved the visuals on Prometheus, again here, it's good to see him back on his A game, really, as far as visuals concerned, in an alien film. So yeah, I loved all that stuff. I loved the characters as well, all the main characters in it. I felt a connection to them. I also bought more the idea that these people are a crew. Whereas with Prometheus, again, I don't want to sound like I'm slagging off Prometheus. I liked that film a lot, you know, but just as a comparison, there were times during that film where I didn't buy that this bunch of people would be put together as a crew and sent off to space. You know, you think of the geologist guy in that. It's like, why would they let him? You know, surely he would not be the best person they could find for that role, given just how antagonistic he was towards the rest of the crew. You know, it really felt quite ragtag. Whereas here, the crew feels a lot more like the crew from the first film, from the original film, in the sense that I can believe them. They feel like real people to me, and I felt more of a connection to them. So when some of them started dying, I felt that loss. Another loss that I really feel, even though she's not really in this film, is Elizabeth Shaw from Prometheus, a character that I actually really liked. Now, seeing what David did to her in order to get to the point where he created the alien, for me it was quite an emotional punch. You know, when we see her lying on the table and we realise just what he's done, yeah, one, you know, it's horrific on the part of her character, what's happened to her, and I felt that. But also, David, he just suddenly becomes one of the best villains in recent memory. It's in cinema, you know. He's a very complex character, you know, really complex character, and someone that you kind of like in some respects. You kind of respect, I should say, maybe not like, but you respect him. You respect his outlook or whatever. But yeah, heinous character. Now, if there's one thing I would criticise in the film, although I will kind of go against that in just a moment. But if there's one thing I would criticise, it's that the ending with David's character when he's pretending to be Walter, you do kind of see that coming a mile off. But, you know, and this was the however, there is a moment in it where the whole time you're thinking, that's David. It's got to be David. It clearly is. But then they do this thing where he sees his creation, this alien, get killed, get blown out of the airlock. And there's a look on his face. And again, this is just brilliant acting from Michael Fassbender, as would be expected. One of the best actors working in Hollywood today. And there's a look on his face that you can kind of read as, one, disappointment that his creation's been killed, or two, relief. And I honestly, at that point, I didn't know which side to sit on. Because up until then I thought, that's David. That's David. I can clearly see this coming. It's David. And then I saw that look in his eye and I'm like, is it David? I don't know. So yeah, you know, that was a good kind of curveball, I think, that they threw in there. But obviously, yeah, it turns out to be David. So take that as you will. Personally, I thought it was really nicely played, even though, like I say, a little bit predictable. But yeah, I love this film. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Like I say, reiterate, one of the top 3 Alien films. And I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. That may go up to a 5 if it holds up on repeat viewing. That is my review of Alien Covenant. But what about you? Have you seen it? And what do you think about the themes in the film? Do the things I say make sense, or do you think I'm talking complete balls? Yeah, comment below, let me know, and until next time, crack in.